inside my head. I try to turn it down, but I can't quite drown it out. I'm tortured every day.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today. You're listening to Society Bites Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Richard Himmer.
And I'm Sherry Himmer, and this is Authentically You, social interaction for the mind and soul.
For the next 25 minutes, we talk about healing and growth from the inside out. Remember, you are 100% responsible for your happiness, joy, and well-being.
All right, so we talked a couple segments ago about mindfulness and even practice one, and today we're going to go and connect that to a way to change self-perception with the self-perception rule, and that is the rule of what if. It's the ability to introduce a new possibility into the framework of your thinking.
Yeah, we use what if as a way to bridge the conscious with the subconscious. You ask yourself a question, what if I can? And it changes the complete neural breakdown, neural makeup of your body. When you ask what if, you actually can new cells. And remember, neurons that fire together, wire together, according to Dr. Siegel. By asking the what if, you can heal from, you can actually bring yourself out of a depressive state. You can change your mood. You can change your approach on different things. And we want to kind of talk about that today. The research behind it, the stories, it kind of plays a role in what we do. So let me give you a little bit of the research here. This comes from a book that I'm reading by Arthur C. Brooks called Love Your Enemies, How Decent People Can Save America from the Culture of Contempt. Now, it's interesting because as we're at the time that we're recording this, we're in an election year and we're in a COVID-19 quarantine. And when you watch the news, it's fascinating because it's about as contemptuous as you can get. It's about 10% news and 90% color commentary on why the other guy's wrong, on why the other guy's reporting it this way and they're wrong.
And everything's high stakes right now. I mean,
it is high stakes.
Our economy's been flattened in our attempt to flatten the virus.
And based upon, I perceive that I'm coming from a fairly neutral position, looking at who is telling the truth. In other words, what's right and what's wrong and what's the right thing to go. And based upon all the research that I'm doing and I'm seeing, and I'm looking at different researchers from across the nation, the world, it seems that we are making emotional decisions on faulty information and we're not correcting them as we move forward. In fact, we're double downing on the decisions that are being made on information, data that was wrong. And I find that to be fascinating. But I know we're sidetracking just a little bit. The reason I'm reading the book is because of the political climate. We're coming into an election year. And when you look at the way things are done, it's so contemptuous in its nature.
Well, and everything is always perception based. So when you really look at things that matter in your life, like your marriage or communication with your kids or how you even get along at work, and you're trying some of the things we're talking about, like mindfulness, this is an opportunity for you to actually shift some perceptions within yourself.
Right.
And that's why it's called the self-perception rule. Your perception will always be projected in your behavior,
whether you know it or not.
Yes.
And this goes back to the story I told in the last segment with my isolating. I was projecting onto you my inadequacies and my false narratives as a way for me to medicate. So coming from the research, one of the ideas behind the self-perception rule is the construct of you fake it till you make it.
And I don't like that.
I know people
term.
don't like that.
I don't like it because the word fake, and I'm just going to blow this up right now. Like it's a cute, catchy term about the same thing we're talking about, but I don't think it does it justice because I do believe we are as we think. And our thoughts.
Okay, that's where we're going.
Yeah, but the thing that's fake, no, it really isn't fake, but it rhymes.
Well, yeah,
so they use it. Fake it till you make it.
And
sounds
I would change
like really shallow, and I'm saying this is nothing but shallow. It's actually very deep.
And that's why I use the term "what if."
Yeah, it's such a better term.
It's not a fake; it's a what if.
Mm-hmm.
When you what if it, what you do, and there's no rhyme to that. Sorry, I'm not as good as Dr. Siegel. So if you what if it, you actually can change the chemical makeup of what you're doing. Even if you don't feel like being nice, for example. What if you act as a nice person would act? And the term nice needs to be defined, but today's not today. You'll realize that if you what if, let's just say being kind, you'll actually start becoming kinder and you'll reap the rewards. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, and most of us assume that our actions follow emotions. That's not exactly true. Because what we found is if we feel happy, we act happy, that might be true, but action follows attitude. Now, let's go back a step. We know that behavior follows beliefs. We know that beliefs follow experiences.
Right.
What we have found is that your feelings follow your actions. If you do something, you feel it. But if you think it, you do it. So now it comes back to, what if you think something, then you can do something.
You'll get a whole new experience.
That's where we're going.
And you'll start to change your beliefs. You'll
This is
start
fascinating.
to change your core.
So going back to it, experiences drive beliefs, false narratives, shadows. Your shadows dictate your behavior. Well, what if you want to change your behavior? Start with a thought. What if? The what if gets down to the subconscious. There's your bridge. Your what if gets to the subconscious, and now you think it. What if I can be? What if I can stay out of my man cave? What if I stand toe-to-toe with my wife and have a good civil conversation with her? What if? So I think it. Then I imagine, what would it look like? Now I act that way. I'm just standing there talking to you, and it feels wonderful not to have you be wrong all the time, because heaven knows you've had your share of those.
It's okay. I'm comfortable with that.
But it's my immaculate perception. That's the idea, and that's where the research went. So in the words, our ancient wisdom has always taught that attitude follows the action. In the words of a Vietnamese Buddhist master, he said, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy.
Mm-hmm.
What if I can just smile? Now, how many times have you guys heard, if you answer the phone with a smile on your face? When we start the podcast, depending on the mood, am I smiling? You can tell. Am I in a good mood, not bad? You can hear that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't feel great starting the show, or I don't feel great talking to a client. But I have to ask, what if I'm my best person with that client right now? What if I'm the best coach I can be? That's huge.
You know, one of the things I've learned from the aspect of being a teacher is that sometimes by the end of the day, you can feel really frustrated in your classroom or frustrated with the student a little bit, but you have to think about, okay, I may feel this right now, but tomorrow morning, when that student walks in, what do I want the day to even begin? And it's a whole new day.
Right.
And so there's just a gear that has to be there in teaching, but it's also the opportunity that with kids, it's a new day for them and they know it too. And so you get to take that initiative and make it a new day. And I love that.
Recent scientific work actually shows the validity of what Sherry and I are talking about right now. They call it the self-perception theory, and I just call it the self-perception rule. And it holds that acting as if, now they're saying the words the way I would say the words, one feels something will actually result in that feeling. So one of the pioneers is James Laird. He's a psychologist at Clark University in Massachusetts. So in 1974, he conducted a series of tests in which he induced subjects to force themselves to smile or frown. Okay, now I can picture some people in my mind that this would be torture. So that they didn't know what his purpose was. He attached fake electrodes to their faces and told them he was testing the activity of facial muscles under various conditions. Then he showed the test subjects pictures of children playing with the Ku Klux Klan and marching while they held a frown and or a smile. If you guys could see Sherry's face, that would be fun. Afterwards, he had them take a test to measure their moods. He found that the participants described themselves as happier when they were in a smile expression and angrier when they were in a frown expression, no matter what the image was. Now, you could call it fake it, but I prefer, like you said, act as if. Just what if you can be neutral? What if you can be whatever it's going to be that you're working on? What if I can actually get along? What if I don't? Oh, I got a column, an article, research article from a friend of mine down. He's a professor at a university. And it was based upon one of my blogs. And this lady did a fast of criticism for 48 hours. And she said, what if I can be critical free for 48 hours? What would that look like? The results of her research for 2 days was phenomenal. Her whole lifestyle changed after that 48-hour fast. She didn't do anything other than act as if she could. So what if it was like this way? And that's what we're suggesting. Then he did a second experiment. So Laird used the same setup, but this time he showed participants cartoons, while once again forcing them to either have a smile and or a frown. The subjects found cartoons viewed while they were smiling to be more humorous than cartoons viewed while they were frowning. So he concluded that the manipulation, the what if, has an impact. And then they moved on and did some research on the smile. They found it to be a powerful weapon for leaders who seek to spread positivity and unification. That was another research they did. They actually, the bottom line was, it turns out it's hard to hate when you have a smile on your face. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, they did it with EEGs, etc. But what I want to get to is a little bit of how this is an experience in our life. So they in the process called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, one of the things the psychologists teach their depressed, notice it's the depressed patients, to do is try to act as happy people act. Okay, so now I'm going to put this on to you. Let's pretend for a second that you're the depressed patient and I'm the psychologist. And I say to you, all right, Sherry, what we're going to do for the next 24 hours is you're going to act as though you were happy. What would a happy person do?
Like, what would their day look like?
Start your day out. So
Okay.
what's your currently day? You're depressed, right?
I'm
You're
depressed,
ultimately
so it's
depressed.
really hard for me to get out of bed, and I just don't feel like exercising. I don't feel like, eating healthy. If I eat, I just grab what's ever there. I'm not really
Muffins.
thinking. The muffins on the counter calling me, and I'll eat that, and then I'll feel really yucky, and I'll just go back to bed. So a happy person,
What are you going to
well, I think the happy people get up, and I've heard this thing about they make their bed and they exercise and maybe get outside and get showered, and they're like raring to go by 8 a.m. And happy people do things for other people. They're productive. So maybe they make breakfast for their family, or maybe they are helping their neighbor with a chore. They're able to see things I just don't have the energy to do. So,
But what if you did?
okay, so if I did, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to get my day started. I'm going to eat something healthy in the morning,
These are called implementation statements.
right? I'm going to take a shower, and then I'm going to go for a nice brisk walk, and I'm going to look for things I could help in my neighborhood.
Now, Sherry hasn't read the research. I've not shown this to you.
Okay.
So I'm going to read right out of it.
Okay,
So
how'd I do?
instead of staying in your pajamas all day, get out of bed, take a shower, get dressed, eat your breakfast, go outside and talk to people. Even if you feel miserable, smile and pretend you're happy. Your emotions will conform to your actions to some degree. It's exactly what the researchers found. Now the reverse is
Did they include make the bed?
they didn't at this particular part, but I'm sure.
I've heard the other studies.
Yeah. And I know it's 76% of people who make their bed feel better.
Well, it's because you can't climb back in. Once you make the bed, who wants to climb back into a made bed?
Well, a depressed person would say, I just get on top of it and pull a cover over me because they're depressed. They don't act,
I don't really
act
know,
as if.
but they wouldn't even make the bed.
Now, what's interesting is the reverse is true. So if you start acting like a depressed person, you're going to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what makes this interesting is this is what parents intuitively know. If your kids start hanging around other kids who are